Hello, everybody, and welcome to our very first 2021 in the Spotlight. Tonight, I have joining me Kelly Spencer, who's here to talk to us about finding joy in the moment. Kelly is a mindfulness specialist, a speaker, and an author, a wellness columnist for the Post Media, a certified life coach, yoga and meditation teacher, energy healer, and the owner of Indigo Lounge Wellness Centre that is found in Tillsonburg, Ontario. She appreciates and loves spending time with her loved ones and the outdoors and anything that makes the world a better place. You guys can find Kelly on Facebook at Indigo Lounge 1111 or on Instagram at mindful.empowered.living. So thank you so much for joining me here tonight, Kelly. How have you been doing, and how are you doing with all of the energies and stuff of everything that's been happening over the past year?
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
It really is.
Thanks for having me. It's so good to see your face. We haven't seen each other for some time, and so thanks for having me and for the honor of the first one of the year. I'm doing good. I really am, and I was saying to you earlier, I always feel this little twinge of guilt when I say I'm doing good because I am. And I think a lot of that has to do with mindset and practices that I have. But it's been a year of constant pivot.
Beautiful.
Like just pivot after pivot after pivot. And sometimes it's had its lows. It's definitely had its moments where at one point I was moving to Hong Kong, where my sister lives. And then at other times, I'm like, this is awesome. I'm getting to learn so much about myself and the world. And so it's kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster, but not like this. It's been more like, oh, okay, now we're pivoting. Now we're pivoting. Now we're pivoting. And with that, I feel like I'm doing good. I feel a little bit blessed, to be quite honest. And I know that sounds weird in the middle of a pandemic.
I think it's an awesome way to be, though. I mean, if you can choose to be blessed or choose to be kind of lost in the chaos of what everything is, I think to choose to be blessed is a much better way to be able to view it, you know?
Yeah, like and that's it. There's always chaos in our world. There's always stress in our world. And the fact is right, this past year there's been like pick your stress option, right? Like it's been like one of the biggest civil rights movements. It's been a pandemic. Like that happened a century ago. Like honestly, nobody knows what the heck they're doing, let alone running a business or going to school or trying to navigate your own personal bubbles or being locked in a house with like your own, personal bubble, seeing people, not seeing people. Like it's just been one challenge after the other. And it's definitely been, it's been a road to navigate for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one of the most important things for everyone to remember is that everybody has a struggle and we're all in this together, but it's all different for each of us. So what I struggle with is not necessarily what everyone else is actually struggling with, you know? So having a lot of compassion for a lot of people right now for whatever their own personal struggle might be, or how they're even finding that joy in their life right now.
Well, and that's the thing that there's first few months where we were all like I remember I think even with you like working here at the lounge and other people that were booked, well, we'll just cancel it for a couple weeks and see how it goes, and then we'll rebook it, and then a month later, well, we better wait another month. And then my cousin, who is like a nerdy scientist, he's actually working with Oxford University in the UK on the vaccines and stuff. He's like, and he's from South Africa, so he's my cousin's partner, and he's like, oh no, Kelly, this won't be back to normal for a year or two. And I'm like, what? But that can't be. And so those first couple months, there was definitely a few moments of, okay, what am I going to do here? Because I had just moved in with my partner. his son, my stepson, just got an autism diagnosis. And so we had all these new parameters in the house and new guidelines to live by, which he hated, his son. And then I wasn't seeing my own children because my children are adult children at university. And so here I was in this home that was new to me. And I had a few dark moments. And so it was very early on for me where I went, okay, where am I going to go with this? What am I going to do about this? What can I do about this? And that's where my mindfulness practice saved the day. Like, it really did save the day for me.
I'm so glad that you had that, because it sounds like a lot coming at you all at once, and a lot of changes coming at you all at once. And I think one of the most empowering things you just said there is, what can I actually do about this?
Right. And like, if you don't have a mindfulness practice, the easiest way to describe mindfulness is present moment awareness of what is as it is without judgment. So, that's easier said than done. It's why they call it a practice. But when we can go, okay, so we have a lockdown or maybe a shift in my business where, okay, I can't teach classes. I don't know where my business is going. I'm not going to play out all kinds of dreadful scenarios until I have the facts in front of me. And then, so even personally, what can I do? Well, I can go for walks. I totally was a rebel at the beginning when they shut down the beaches. And I'm like, Justin was like, my partner was like, we need to get you to water. We need to get you to get near water, because that's where I feel more balanced, where I feel more calm, where I feel a little bit more aligned. So there was things I started to do, the daily meditation practice. I had that kind of in place, but now I knew, like, it's do or die. You have to do this. And, that might be a little extreme, but it was so important for me to do what I can do. I did start some creative projects after a little bit, because that also fed my soul. And I think that a big piece of it was that piece of do what you can do, or what can you do, but also what you shouldn't do. and not to focus on that kind of angle of what's wrong or what's bad, but like in a holistic world, and maybe you have found this, there is a more lean towards anti-establishment or anti-big pharmaceuticals. And so I had friends just emailing me nonstop, all the theories out there. And who knows what's true? Like, honest to God, who knows? Maybe Bill Gates is, evil. Maybe Hillary Clinton's eating babies and loving Satan. Who knows? But one, how does it affect my world? And two, what can I do about it? And if I can't do anything about it, why am I giving it any attention? And so very early on, I had to say to my friends, quit sending me this shit. Quit sending it to me, because it's just making me go, what the hell? Like, And, I'm sure I've said it lots of times to people, you need to wake up, you should do meditation or yoga or whatever. But I came to this conclusion that there was so much division in every part of our world, including how we viewed a pandemic and what we were doing during it. And I had to make that decision that I just wasn't like, even my mom does not like Donald Trump. And I bet you on the daily. I don't even have news. I don't have cable. I bet you every day she's sending me a message. You would not believe what Donald Trump did today. And I finally had to say to her, I don't care. There's nothing I can do about this. And her and my sister would say, well, it affects you. You should care. It affects you. And I'm like, it's not that I don't care about the world events. I just choose not to focus on it all the time. I'm not saying that none of these things that people are saying might be true. I'm not saying that maybe there is not all the truth given to us. What I do know is that science is real, and that I just choose to know what I know and do what I have to do. And if it comes out later, some other truth, then that's it. But I'm not going to go, oh my God, what are we going to do about this worldwide cabal that's taking over? Because that's horrifying.
Absolutely. And it's amazing when you think about where can you focus your energy. Because I totally went down the rabbit hole at the beginning of all of this, and all it made me feel was fearful and angry and totally restricted in my body. And at one point, I remember scrolling my phone and reading more, and you start screenshotting things and talking to people about it and whatever. And it just adds more fear and more anger and more restriction and stuff. And if eventually I finally had to say, okay, enough is enough. I At this point, again, it's not that you don't care about the world and what the world is going through or the people in the world, but at one point you do need to go, okay, I can't put any more energy into this.
Right. I totally, like, I'm a rabbit hole gal. I can, like, you aliens, sure, yeah, they're here, like, whatever. But at the end of the day, like, what are you going to do about it? Like, I always joke, like, why don't we go to the moon more often? If it was real, why aren't we there all the time? and people go, oh, you're such a big conspiracy theorist. But I just say it kind of half joking, but it could be true. I don't know. But what can I do about it? And how am I going to let it affect me? Because what I do know about, I have several friends that are in that rabbit hole, and they're probably going to stay there a while, is they're obsessed. They're obsessed and fearful. And, some friends are moving off the grid, and it's just, it just doesn't seem like a good way to live. If what we focus on expands, if whatever we're giving our energy to grows, I'm going to choose to still be happy in my relationships, to do whatever I can do with my closest people, to do what I can with my business, to do what I can with my health, which includes my mindset, my perspective. And yeah, I think that that's a huge piece of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, how do you encourage people to stay mindful? Because I won't bypass the fact that the world has been kind of a shit show for the past year. It's been one thing after another after another. And there was a recap of 2020, and there was so many things that had actually happened. And I remember being like, oh my God. And it wasn't until I did the recap that I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that happened. Yeah,
Was
I
it
forgot.
that Netflix show, Death to
Yeah.
I know we watched that on New Year's Eve, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about those forest the fires that wiped out half of Australia. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a
So
wild year.
So, with all of the things that are happening and stuff, how do you encourage people to be mindful? Because I started my own mindfulness practice about 3 years ago, and it was kind of a shit show at the beginning of it because there's all these emotions and stuff that finally come up because you've been pushing them down for so long. So, how do you encourage someone in a year such as this to start to be mindful or to practice mindfulness with what is coming up?
Well, I think there's two things. One, just a regular mindful practice asks us to check in with ourselves. In yoga philosophy, there's 8 limbs of yoga, and one of the yoga limbs, like the poses that we do in yoga class, are actually just one of the 8 limbs. One of the other limbs is called the niyamas, and they're called observances, self-observances. There's 5 of them, and one of them is called svadhyaya, which is kind of a fun word to say. And it is self-inquiry, getting to know yourself better, learning the lessons of your soul, knowing your body, knowing your heart, knowing your mind. And so when I teach my students or when I'm doing talks, I talk about it like a photocopy machine. If you were to imagine that you were photocopying your physical body and just started from head to toe, noticing where you hold tightness, or if you've been clenching your jaw, and just observing. When we say non-judgmental awareness, that means instead of going, oh, this is bad, my jaw is really tight, we go, isn't that interesting that my jaw's been really tight lately? I wonder what that's all about. So we get more curious about what's going on in our physical body. And then we might even take it back a step. So where's that coming from? Now, if you ran a marathon, or if you've been shoveling snow, or you had jaw surgery, well, that's where that's coming from. But if I take it further, well, it's because I've been thinking, my mind's been crazy and busy, or my emotions have been really high strung. So then we inquire that. We scan our emotions. What kind of emotions have I been having lately? Where do they come from? Is my fears or worries real or perceived? Most of the fears that we all have are perceived. We don't know. We don't know about Fauci. We don't know about Bill Gates. We all have our own thoughts about them. I personally think all the theories out there came from anybody that Trump hated. And then all of a sudden there's these rumors about them. But whatever, it stems like from a country that isn't even our country, right? Like, we're obsessed with American culture and who's president, and like myself included. And so is it real or perceived? Is it really affecting our life, or are we letting it? And then we can even notice, well, what thoughts have I been having most of the time? What thoughts have I been obsessing about? What thoughts are more prevalent? And so really just getting to know your body, your mind, and your heart. One of the biggest indicators too is to notice your breath. So when we're stressed, we tend to breathe really quick and shallow. And then all kinds of things happen with that. Our cortisol levels spike, our nervous system can get imbalanced, our brain waves kind of stay in a beta brainwave, which is kind of all over and spasmodic. And then if we just take some mindful breaths of like literally no big fancy technique, just because we do this auto breath all day and all night. We don't even have to try to do it. We don't have to say, now breathe in, now breathe out, now breathe in. And so when we can slow it down and mindfully breathe, there's nothing more present moment than our breath. It's the first thing and the last thing we do for the most part in this world. And when we can mindfully breathe, then our brain waves change more into alpha brain waves, which are a little bit calmer. Our nervous system balances, our hormones balance. Everything kind of goes, oh, okay, we're right here, right now, and we're breathing. And so when we can do that kind of inventory or scan, that's one of the easiest ways. Breathing is one of the easiest ways to come into this moment and check in with ourselves. I have a little alarm on my clock that goes ding on the hour. Sometimes I go, whatever, and I ignore it. And sometimes I go, okay, what do I need in this moment? Holy cow, my shoulders are tight. I'm sitting like this, and or I've been clenching my jaw, or maybe I need to eat, or maybe I've been sitting at my computer for 4 hours and I need to walk. Or the more you can check in with yourself in this moment, the better we can take care of ourselves. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's beautiful.
And then the other piece is perspective. Perspective for me is huge. So as I said at the beginning, I went, okay, what can I do? What can I do? And I love a lot of Abraham Hicks stuff. And it just happened to come up for me at the very beginning of this. And I can't remember exactly what she was saying, but it was about the pandemic. And she had said something to the effect of, we get a satisfying feeling as humans. We get a satisfying feeling with war, with fighting, with division, with right and wrong. And because of that, we're like rising it up like some sort of demigod, this division. I'm right, you're wrong, you're an idiot, you need to wake up, you're blah, blah, blah. And I just decided from the beginning, I don't want to focus on that. And she also talked about just staying and focusing on things that bring you joy and contentment, and let that grow. I read another piece, and I haven't even a clue who it is because it literally was last March, so almost a year ago. Can you believe that? And they were talking about that, a lot of people talk about the evil world reset or something.
Yeah.
I don't even read about it, so I don't know. But this woman was talking, excuse me, about the need for a reset of society, that we've lost touch with real connection with each other. We've lost touch with real connection with our world, with our climate, and I remember reading this and going, oh my gosh, this makes sense. We're building ourselves, starting with ourselves, because like you had to go inward. If you can't focus on the external, you have to go inward. And that's what I teach pre-pandemic, is we have to go inward more. That's where everything is. That's where we find our happiness, our creativity, our intuition, our little surges of energy that take us down a path, then following the breadcrumbs. And when we're constantly fixated on Hollywood or what Joe Blow over there is doing, or what's happening on Facebook or other people's lives that we barely know on social media, if we're constantly doing that, then we're not doing the inner work of how do I feel? What do I want for myself? What do I want for my life? And then building out, okay, here's my closest family members. How are these relationships? Do we need to work on stuff? Because Justin and I had to go through a lot of work. Like I said, we just moved into with each other. And as he says, and we both agree, if we can make it through this year, we can make it through everything, because we learned how to communicate. Hey, you don't need to act like that, or hey, back down, let's find a solution, rather than just taking off and going out with, your friends or whatever you might do. You had to face the music. And so offering it as a different perspective, that maybe this isn't all bad. Maybe this is good for our climate. Maybe this is what the climate needed. I remember going down to Turkey Point when it was still illegal to go on the beaches. And I remember maybe not crying, but I feeling verklempt and tearful in my eyes, and overwhelmed that the water was completely still. There was no boats, and it might have been around April, May. There was no boats in the water when normally there would. There was no planes in the sky. The water was bluer than it normally looked, because everything wasn't, polluted and the sand all stirred. And I thought, oh my goodness, there's a clarity that's happening right now, not just for humans if they take the opportunity, but for nature as well. And that's where the perspective piece came into it. Maybe this is what we need. Maybe there's a natural, perfect unfolding of life. And maybe this is just part of it, whatever it exposes. But in the meantime, I think we need to be careful on whether our perspective is holding a sword and fighting for whatever it is, or putting the sword down and appreciating the opportunities that this is presenting to us. I am no Mother Teresa, let me tell you, but I always like that she said she won't fight against war, that she will walk for peace. I think that there is a valid distinction between those two perspectives. You can fight the fight, but you're still, like, even if you think it's so good, it's still a fight.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. There's, I don't know if you've ever watched the Left Behind movies. They're like very Christian based. It's a 3-part Christian based movie series. It has Kirk Cameron in it. And it's about like the revelations coming true. So people are disappearing off the earth, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's the 3rd movie. There's all of this war and chaos that's happening. And then this young girl, maybe 15 years old, stands up and she starts to sing Amazing Grace, and all of the fighting stops. And it's just the sound of her voice that's like resonating out over everything. but she stopped the war by using her voice and just simply singing. And it was the most profound moment in a movie that I've ever watched. And I've thought of that moment so many times this year, where I just start saying, let me just sing a song right now. There's shit happening out here. Let me sing my song. No one can hear me because I'm stuck in my house.
Right. But at the same time, there is measurable, scientific, measurable results from mindfulness, from choosing your perspective. So like the Heart Math Institute in the United States, they can measure the energy coming off from the heart energy, much like an EEG can measure the brainwave activity. And they say it measures up to a mile or two away from their machine, but that's only because that's as far as their machine can to go out. And so they've done studies where they get a group of people, and you can call it prayer or being mindfulness, but it's just positive, intentional thinking. Call it what you want, praying, chanting, I don't care. But they've done it like in war-torn areas. And within a day or two, because there's this collective energy of mindful, positive perspective, the war dissipated in that area. And now it might have gone down 5 blocks, but, and it might not have gone away, but everything is an energy that is attractable or pushes away. And so when we think of the division out there, whether it's political or pandemic or science or whatever, everybody thinks they're right. And all that does is creates this energy that is combative and judgmental. And they've done the studies like Greg Braden. Do you know who Greg Braden is?
Love him.
I do too. And so if anybody wants to look him up, it's Greg G-R-E-G-G, Greg Braden. And he kind of bridged the science and spiritual worlds. And he talks about the DNA testing that the US Army did. And so, they could take the DNA out of me and put it under a microscope and then put up a movie, and I could be all full of fear from this movie. And my body, my cells have a cellular memory. So over here, my DNA is reacting. And when we're in what they call a lower vibrational energy, hate, anger, fear, our DNA start to shrink and the circuits start to shut down. The frequency is quite low like that. And so it's missing parts of the DNA link. And if you think about that, we have trillions of DNA in our body that are responding to all of our thoughts. However self-righteous or real we think our fight is, it's still creating a cellular response. And that will have an attraction. So, that's why there's, QAnon or, whatever, storming of the Capitol or whatever it is, because it's attracting all this fight energy. And then as soon as, let's say, they put up a movie that I felt love and gratitude and hope and compassion, those higher vibrational, the DNA within moments start to go brink, and they get really long again. And the love frequency is a lot faster. It hits more DNA. And so all the trillions of DNAs in our body kind of wake up. And I always think it's interesting, when people say, oh, they're shut down emotionally, but literally the cells are shut down.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking that, because I can feel restriction in my body, or I can feel this expansion in my body. So I'm like, oh, I'm literally connecting with what my DNA is actually doing in that moment. That's beautiful.
Right. And then they even took the test further, that they trained the scientists to look at let's say it's my DNA they're looking at. And let's say I'm watching the movie on gratitude, but then they start invoking thoughts within themselves that create fear or whatever. It's affecting my DNA.
Wow.
So, people, I know that when we talk about energy, people are like, yeah, man, you got good energy, or they, think we're all witchy woo. But American Medical Journal did a study where they were I don't even know the right terms, but bouncing atoms off some sort of thing. And there was like a few scientists observing it. And then another scientist came in and all of a sudden everything shifted. And then another scientist came in and observed and it shifted again.
Yes, that
So,
was in What the Bleep Do We Know? I remember watching that.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was. Yeah, that's such a good movie.
it is.
So it's not like we're ever not participating. It's not like they're like, when they say like if there's a bully and a victim and you're just standing by and watching, it's not like your DNA is not being affected by that. Or even if you're, I'm really calm and as much as I might try to be joyful, I was saying to you earlier, I had to tell my friends to quit sending me shit on, Satan worshiping, or how Ellen DeGeneres has a ankle tracker on or whatever. And I'm like, I don't care. What I was noticing was I was like, really, what? Like, and I was reacting. And so then I thought, okay, we've got a choice here that we can choose what we're going to surround ourselves with, not just what thoughts are we going to have, what action are we going to take, but actually what we're going to surround ourselves with, we can be mindful with, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's something that's often overlooked for a lot of people. And I know I've done it myself too, where we talk about eating healthily and eating mindfully and whatnot for our body to provide ourselves with these good nutrients and stuff. But we don't talk about the content that we're digesting, or the music that we're listening to, or the memes that we're sharing, or even the Facebook feed that we're, scrolling on and scrolling on and scrolling on. How many of those messages are we taking in, and how does our body feel as we're taking in all of this messaging from the rest of the world?
Right. Like we consciously, I think we take in 10 bits of information a second, but subconsciously we take in 10,000 bits. And so we're constantly, energy is everywhere. And so being more mindful of what you're allowing, like, I had somebody say to me, you unfollowed and unfriended people that had, content you didn't like. And I'm like, yeah, no offense. I just don't want to read their stuff anymore. Like like it just, I don't like, maybe someday I'll follow them again or whatever, but like, and no judgment. I don't, text my friends and they're an idiot or whatever. I just, am very careful, and I think I've said this to you before, sometimes I can be a little bit of a spiritual snob in the sense that I am just really want to be careful about what I allow into my energy field, because it's affecting me on every level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even think it's spiritual snobbery, because to me, if I go into a bookstore and I know that I don't like historical fact books, okay, it's not like I'm being a snob to those books by going, that's not my energy. Like, I would fall asleep reading that, you know. There's books that I love, the self-help books, spiritual books, et cetera, et cetera. I love those kinds of books, or chick lit books. So am I being a snob to the historical factual books? Absolutely not. I'm just going, I know I don't like that.
Yeah, yeah. And to be honest, I've tried to, with compassion, like, because I have a few, like I said, a few friends that are in thick, like they are disturbed about the world. And I get it. There's lots to be disturbed about. But I'm fascinated why some people would lean that way or that way, and what keeps them from choosing joy. And I have to think that it has to be that mindfulness piece of they're just caught up in the moment. Like, we were saying before, you get down that rabbit hole and you're like, what?
Yeah.
I've always said that when we die, we're going to go, fuck.
Like, 100%.
God,
Yes.
really? Like, we're going to be so glad we didn't know the real truth.
100%.
Right? Because we won't know how to handle that information. Like, there's a reason why government has top secret stuff. We don't want to know that there's aliens living out on Area 51. Like, what are we going to do with that information? Like,
Yes. So for yourself then, because I know you said you had to consciously choose to kind of shift that direction, shift the perspective and stuff. So in the mindfulness and in all of the other practices that you do, what did you find to be most beneficial for you to kind of help shift you back over to here when you were going over to here?
Well, I think it's important to understand as well with mindfulness that it's not like, oh, I feel sad and angry, rainbows and unicorns, rainbows and unicorns. Like I think it's not like we don't want to ignore our emotions and just like I'm so positive. Like, my son and I actually had a really good talk, and like he as well has said he has learned so much. Like he's just a 22-year-old kid. I would think my daughter too. We all have had these profound moments this year, and for my son, like, and he shares it on his social media, so I know he won't mind me saying, but it was toxic positivity. That people would say, oh, I'm really struggling right now, and he'll go, it's fine, you're gonna be good. And like, don't worry. And that can be really invalidating.
Yeah.
And I think we can all invalidate ourselves good enough without having everybody else do it. And so for me, it was that validate how I'm feeling, like, holy shite, I am in a dark place right now. Or, oh my God, I'm so frustrated, and da, da, da. So mindfulness is the acceptance of what is as it is in this moment without judgment. So if you're in a low energy, we can call it negative, we can call it shitty, whatever. If we're in a place that we go, whew, this is where I'm at, then we can one, inquire, well, where's it coming from? Is it an accumulation of, like, I know for me at one point when I had a low moment, new family, not seeing my kids, worrying about this weird virus, is my business going to have, like, it was just coming from all these different angles. So I had to kind of separate it and go, okay, my kids, we need to Zoom more, and I don't care if we walk 6 feet apart, but I need to be in your energy space ASAP. Work, okay, I'm pivoting this way. Household, I'm going to take off whenever I need a break. Whatever it is, like, when you pull it apart, it's a little bit more manageable, but don't ignore how you're feeling. Honor it, accept it as it is. And then from that space of acceptance, that's where we can move into taking authentic action that we can reach a little higher. So we don't have to go from, like, I was like 2 days there where I was like in bed, blinds down, planning about where I was going to move to. I was going to sell my business and maybe move to Mexico and never talk to anybody again. And so, you don't have to go from here to like, okay, I'm positive, I'm back. You just have to reach higher to the next higher vibrational feeling. So if you're feeling despair, then maybe you reach for hope. If you're feeling sad, then maybe you reach for doing okay before you reach to full-on happiness. Because, like, we were saying, sometimes gratitude is hard when it's really crazy, but at the same time, there's always something to be grateful for. There's all, like, my pillow. I really like my bed pillow. It's really comfortable. I'm grateful for it. Like, we can always come up with something.
Yeah.
And so honoring ourselves where we're at, and then really doing what we need to do to get to where we want to go. So acknowledging where we are. And it doesn't always mean that you're always in the moment. I have one child that has a 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 30-year plan, and you'd be lucky to keep her in the moment. And I have another child that's not really sure what he's going to be doing later that day.
Yeah.
So somewhere in between there, we have to be mindful of where we are right now, enjoying the moment or being real with the moment. And then where do we want to go with it? And just like understanding that our emotions are our own personal GPS system. When you're in your car and you take a wrong road or whatever, it'll say, okay, to reroute, we're going to take you this way. And sometimes our sadness, our anger, our frustration, they're just saying, hey, this is where you're at right now. So you can acknowledge that you're on this road, but to get back here, you're going to have to take this path. And so not ignoring how we feel,
Yes.
but also not, wallowing for days in there and just going, I'm still so sad. I'm still moving to Hong Kong.
Yes, I absolutely agree with everything that you're saying there, because it's interesting with we have a very busy house.
Mhm.
We've got 7 people in this house. So there's a wide range of emotions and a wide range of everything every day, and connecting with everyone every single day to see where are you at, and it's okay that this is where you're at right now. We
Right.
were just having a discussion tonight at supper time because our 8-year-old was saying, he's sick of school as it is right now. He's done with it. And he said to his older siblings, like, you guys don't understand because you didn't have to deal with this. And they're like, we're all dealing with this right now. And he was like, yeah, but you're older. Like, none of you had to experience this when you were in grade 3. You guys got to have a normal grade 3. So then we were like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And this
Yeah,
must be so hard for you being in grade
right.
3. So it's just interesting, all of the different emotions that are actually coming up for people. And then having to validate all of those emotions too, as this is a total normal reaction for someone to have it. Because I feel like, as you said, everyone does invalidate their own experience. They're like, I shouldn't be feeling this way right now, but you are. So that's actually what your truth is right now.
Right.
Whether you like it or not, that's just where you're at.
And sometimes we're at it because that's the energy that we're feeling. So we're drawing in that stuff, if that makes sense. So I was feeling mad, my kid, I hadn't seen my kids and they weren't making any effort to talk to me and Zoom me. And, my stepson said he hated me. And, my dad died 7 years ago. Like, I was just bringing in everything I possibly could for my party of pity. And I think that we need to look at that. Where's this coming from? I'm not saying all people that, go down the rabbit holes and stay there, but I have 5 really close people that I know that are kind of hanging and made a little house in the rabbit holes. And they have personal betrayals in their recent history of life. And so there's an energy that's still attached to them that makes sense that the world is betraying them, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Like, there's an energy that might be pulling in, and I'm not saying that the world isn't betraying them, but I'm just saying we tend to focus on the energy that we are feeding. That it's so cliche, and I've shared it a million times through the years, but it's so true that 2 wolves, the Indian chief and the little boy, and he says, how there's 2 wolves inside of us, and one is, fear and envy and anger and hatred, and one is love and compassion and joy. And which wolf wins? And the grandpa says, whatever wolf you feed.
Yeah.
That's like, it sounds a little cliche because we've all heard it, but well, I shouldn't say we've all heard it. You might not.
No, I've shared it. I've shared it.
Right.
So yeah.
Anybody that hasn't heard it, you can look it up. But you get the gist of it. Whatever we are focusing on, whatever wolf we're feeding, whatever energy, whether we think it's a righteous cause or not, if it's a fight, it's a fight. If it is fearful, then it's fearful. If it's joyful, then it's joyful.
Yeah.
That seems oversimplified, but it ultimately is a little bit simple that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what do you suggest because I realize everyone has these different life experiences and stuff, and some people feel as though there is no choice but to feel the way that they're feeling about a situation, not maybe on a global pandemic, but say on a personal issue or whatever that might be coming up for them. So things like grief or things like, a job loss or something. So how do you help someone shift through those emotions? Because I'm just almost hearing from spirit right now that say something like grief Okay. It's not that you're choosing grief in that moment. It's that you're actually experiencing grief in that moment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, then experience it.
Fair
If
enough. Okay.
yeah, if you're feeling it, then feel it. And I think it's also important to say that grief and joy can coexist together. So when we might be feeling very sad about something or frustrating about something, whether it's grief or frustration or anger or whatever it is, we can have that and it can be here, and then we can go, okay, I need to get outside and enjoy some fresh air and connect with nature, maybe tell a stupid joke and laugh. And the two can coexist. There's nothing to say that we either have to be low or high vibrational. We often can go like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. 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 Because there's been so many times in my life where it's like, I'm angry about this, but I'm happy about this, and I'm feeling nervous about this, and you're feeling all of it all at the same time.
Right, right. And I'm not saying, like, I think we all process our life experiences different. I've had people say to me, how do you stay joyful all the time? Well, I'm not. That's how. I just don't. But at the same time, I have had some pretty big traumas in my life. And I moved through it through mindfulness, through understanding, and through perspective. That non-judgmental piece is important, so that when we are feeling, let's say we got bitchy or angry, that we just go, wow, I got bitchy there. It doesn't make us a bitch. If we got angry, it doesn't make us a rageaholic. It is an experience that we had, and if we can step back and not judge it and observe it with, wow, I have been a little bit bitchier lately, I wonder what that's all about. Then when we get curious about it, then that's svaria, that self-inquiry of what's going on inside of me, my mind, my thoughts, all that stuff. Because we're going to have all those experiences, and when we judge it shifts everything. If you think of let's say you go to a restaurant when they reopen, and you order soup, and you're with your friend and she orders something, and your soup comes and it's cold, the old classic my soup is cold shit. And so then you can go, oh, my soup's cold, and get ticked off and go, oh, I can't believe my soup's cold. Has your soup cold? And oh, yours is hot. Well, I wonder why mine, well, there it goes, pour me again. Oh, my soup's always cold, everything happens to me. And then you call your staff over and you're like, oh, my soup is cold. And they take it back in the kitchen. They're like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe this lady out there, she's losing her shit. And there's a ripple effect. If
Yeah.
you were to judge that non-judgmentally, but as a fact, using your witness mind and just observing the facts, my soup is cold, you'd go, excuse me, my soup is cold. And they'd take it and they'd heat it up rather than spit it. No, they don't spit in it. And they'd heat it up, and you'd say, thanks so much for heating it up. And you'd carry on your conversation, and no energies are shifted, including yours, right?
Yeah.
Like, and there's another example I often use is at a four-way stop. It kind of drives me a little bonkers when you get to a four-way stop and there's a few that get there and everybody goes, oh, you go, you go, you go, you go. And everybody's like playing this game. So I often just kind of get there and go, I'm going. And I go. And I was with my son once, and this guy and I got there about the same time. And I went, and he was like, I couldn't hear him. Windows were up and he was in a car, not my car. But you could see, and he's like, and he's losing his mind. And I smiled at him and I gave him a peace sign. My son was like, oh my God, you're so organic. But I said, like, there's a difference here. Like, he's driving down that road, calling me names in the book. It has shifted his thoughts, his feelings, his cells, his perspective, because somebody went 1 second before him at a stop sign.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it was about, right? But because of the energy he chooses to hang on to, and my kids always got mad at me when I'd say, you choose those feelings. But he's choosing to hang on to those feelings and that energy. that situation supported how he was feeling. I said to my son, I'm not going to let it bug me. I'm not going to talk about it. Here I am talking about it 10 years later. But not in a way that like I feel resentment for him or angry for him. I often thought, gosh, that must suck to be that mad about somebody
Yeah.
leaving a stop sign a few seconds before you. And so when we can be more mindful of, why am I so angry? What's that all about? Or, why would I get so mad about that? Well, maybe I'm feeling like, I always get shit on or whatever. Like there's usually something that when we get to know ourselves more, when we get more curious about what makes us tick and what pisses us off or what our peeves are or what we feel joy with, and we dig a little deeper, and then we get a little bit more of the big picture of our true self.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what a great example for how we can choose in those moments. And as you were talking about the soup lady, I've totally dined with the soup lady before. And I've had people give me the finger because they didn't like whatever driving choice I was making or whatever. And these are all very relatable moments of we can choose in that moment whether we want to contribute to the anger or if we want to contribute to the joy.
Right. And sometimes it's not as extreme as that. Like, you know, I always tease my mom because she's in everybody's head. Like she'll see, like, let's say a man just sitting on a park bench by himself. To me, like, and I think because I practiced mindfulness for so many years now, I go, there's an older man sitting on a bench. Like, it's just a fact. But my mom will say things like, oh, look at him. He's by himself. He's lonely. And I'm like, what? How did you get that out of that? Like, he's looking at a tree. How did you get lonely out of that? But my mom's lost her husband, and maybe like that was the energy. So we put our stuff on, our judgments, rather than just looking at it mindfully. Like, all of our experiences have our flavor attached to them. When we are talking about our perception of it, it's all based on our experiences that we've had in the past, the energy that we're pulling forth with our past to the present moment, whether it's conscious or not. Most often not. And we're like, wow, where did that come from? But it can be subtle things like that as well that we're projecting onto the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, one question I always ask everybody who's on in the spotlight is if you could give the world one piece of wisdom, anything in the world, what would you want the world to know right now?
Um, is simplified. Mindfulness changes your life, like beyond. Like, I know this sounds extreme and dramatic, but like when I first started yoga and meditation, it saved my life. And I don't mean like, I was in the ICU and all of a sudden I was revived, but like I had a poor connection with my spirit at the time, and which felt more like a soul sickness. And when I came into mindfulness, being more aware of myself, it just felt like it like lit the flame underneath of me, and my spark could get brighter. But it definitely changes you for a healthier, happier way of living, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, energetically, whatever. So try mindfulness. That's my advice. Just try something, whether it's taking 10 deep breaths a few times a day. It's that simple.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight, Kelly. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here and hear all of your wisdom and stuff. Everyone that has joined us, thank you so much for joining in on the conversation, for sending all of your loves and likes into the page. Next week, we have Christine Sutherland who's joining us, and she's here to talk to us about the unconscious truth. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation as well. If anybody would like to connect with Kelly, you can find her on Indigo Wellness Centre on Facebook, as well as on Instagram under mindful.empowered.living. And she's always got some great content, great memes, great posts, etc. You've actually inspired me quite a bit through this pandemic, through a lot of the posts and stuff that you've been putting out there. So thank you so much for contributing joy to the world, because I think the world needs a lot more of it.
Yeah, for sure. And if we can all just do a little bit, that ripple effect is pretty tremendous.
It absolutely is.
Thank you. So good to see you.
So good to see you too. It's been way too long, and I can't wait to come back to Indigo Lounge and get a taco salad.
Yeah. We got a new menu. We got all kinds of fun new stuff on the new menu.
Awesome. Is taco salad on there?
It is.
Okay, good.
I was actually thinking about doing a week or a daily special for the practitioners, because everybody that works like out of here, whether it's regularly or periodically, has a favorite that they get every time they work.
And I really should. I have divulged and went and ordered other things. But and every time I'm like, I don't like this as much as I like the taco salad. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it is.
This has been awesome, Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. See you.